Hello everybody, welcome to this video activity on sharpening your garden tools in preparation for gardening next spring. My name is Ray Kruse, Food Systems Program Coordinator and Master Gardener Coordinator right here at the ISU Extension Outreach Office of Dubuque County. And this is a simple gardening activity you can do in the middle of winter so that you can hit the ground running next spring in your garden with a fresh cutting edge. First thing we're going to talk about is sharpening those more delicate and precise garden tools such as pruners and loppers. Welcome back. We are here with our loppers that we had talked about earlier, and what we're going to do first is put on a pair of safety glasses when sharpening, just because of all the fine particles that are going to be coming off this blade. When sharpening a very detailed item such as a loppers or a pruners, it's important that we identify what is going to be the edge that we're sharpening. So what we have here is an angled edge here on this blade, and we have a flat side to the back. And this flat side is what very nicely rides the flat side to this anvil side of this pruner right here. So when we actually do the cutting action, this smooth side here rides against the smooth back side of this blade. And then this angled surface right here actually cuts the branch or the twig away that we're trying to prune off the tree. And this is going to be the surface that we're going to be sharpening today. If you were to sharpen the smooth side on the back, what commonly will happen is it will not ride against the smooth anvil here, and you'll actually have binding of any twigs or things that are not cutting quite right, and you could bend your blade out or the anvil back. And so it's very important that we actually are sharpening the angled side of this pruners or the loppers. So when we go to sharpening this, what we have here are we just have some plain sharpening oil stones. This is a medium grit here, and like I said, we're going to be sharpening this angled portion here, and we're just very gently going to take this here and try and put even amounts of pressure on the blade all across it as we push down. So I'll show you right here, just like that. So we have touching here on the back, and as we go forward, we're going to very nicely sharpen that blade. Now you'll see in time, as you do this enough times, that this top edge of the blade here will have a nice shiny edge indicating that you have effectively sharpened that entire part. And that's wonderful. Another tip I would give you too is going back with a fine tipped or a fine grit sharpening block and polishing that blade up just a little bit better so that you have a little bit more of a slippery surface when you're cutting through branches and things like that. And just like that, this simple activity can be done with those two individual sharpening stones. And then you can reattach your pruners back together, and you have an excellent cutting edge for pruning your trees and shrubs next spring. Now you might be tempted to go and try and use a power tool such as an angle grinder or a Dremel, and those are really a little bit too aggressive for these fine tipped cutting tools right here. So really this is best done with these sharpening stones. You could use a file if you wanted to, but again, those are also a little on the aggressive side, and the sharpening stones are really your best option. Now unfortunately we can't sharpen all blades. A good example of that is my pruning saw right here. We've got lots of serrated little tips here, and just due to the complexity of this, you're not able to really sharpen this type of blade. So this is really a one-time use blade that gardeners aren't really able to sharpen. But smooth-edged blades like this loppers that we have here are a great item that you can sharpen at home in the wintertime in preparation for next spring. I'll have you join me right back here with some larger garden tools. Welcome back, and we are sharpening some of our larger garden tools. I have my digging shovel that I commonly use in the garden every year, and I've weighted down on this surface so that it doesn't move while we sharpen it. Now, you might remember from our first activity that identifying which surface that we're actually removing the steel away and sharpening is very important, and that is demonstrated really well here with this shovel. If we imagine using the shovel out in the garden, pushing it down into the soil, that soil actually falls away or falls forward, and that's going to be the surface that we're going to sharpen, and that's going to be this front edge right here. Most shovels come from the store with that surface already sharpened like that. Now, an example of an exception to that rule would be your standard garden hoe. We imagine using the hoe in the garden and pulling forward and that soil falling forward towards us on this blade, and we would think that we would actually sharpen this side of the blade, but rather it's the reverse. And garden hoes are an exception, and they commonly come with the back side sharpened. So you just maintain that pattern when sharpening in the future. You wouldn't want to change that. Now, when we're sharpening these larger tools here, we're going to be using some larger tools to sharpen. So I'd encourage you to use some leather gloves for safety. And our tool of choice here is something called a bastard mill file. Why they call it that, I don't know, but that's what they're sold as. But that is what we're going to use. It's got very fine teeth that are optimal for removing steel from this blade here. Something you're going to want to stay away from is a wood type file. And you can identify those as a file that has larger teeth, and you can actually feel those teeth with your fingers a lot easier. And also another thing, whether it's a mill bastard file or a wood file, they sometimes have a rounded surface, and that's what this file has here. You can't see it in the camera, but it has a rounded surface. And you're not going to want to use that for sharpening a blade like this because it doesn't offer as consistent of a flat edge. So you're going to want a very nice, straight, flat edge bastard file. Now, on this file here, you might be able to see in the camera, our teeth run diagonally across the file surface like that, where my finger is. Now, when we have these teeth contact the surface of the shovel here, we're actually going to not want them to be parallel with those teeth. We're going to want them to be perpendicular, and that's how we'll hold that file at an angle and file away. And that's something you might notice here that's different from our original loppers that we were sharpening earlier, is we were taking the loppers, and if you imagine this is the blade, and we were pushing it across the stone away from us. And that is okay, but now that we're using a file and we are going to be holding the sharpening piece, we don't want to be running the file or running our hands into the blade and risk cutting ourselves. So we're actually going to take this file and sharpen away from it. And we'll do this a few times here until that blade is nice and sharp and shiny there, and you can feel that with your fingers and you can get the desired sharpness that you would like. Now, you might be tempted to try and use something like a Dremel or a power grinder to sharpen this here. And those are something that you can use, but be mindful that they are going very, very fast. And I actually don't encourage it because they're going so fast and spinning so fast that it actually heats the blade up. And if you have a sharpened blade like what this shovel is here, it can actually make that blade edge really soft. And so this file isn't going to do that because you're not going to be running it that fast across that surface to heat it up and alter the chemical makeup of that steel and its hardness. So that's one disadvantage of using an electrical grinder. And another disadvantage is that they can actually be too aggressive, and you can actually not keep your nice smooth surface or smooth cutting edge as well. So that's just a little tip there. But this is some tips and tricks on how to sharpen your garden tools for use in the garden next spring. This is Ray Kruse, Food Systems Program Coordinator and Master Gardener Coordinator with the ISU Extension Outreach Office at Dubuque County. Happy growing, everybody.